Karen and Ingrid to lead the eulogies.
Joe's come all the way over from England to be with us, and I'm really thankful that she was here to be with Mum during the last few days. I hope you heard that. Okay. It all started 83 years ago in 1930 when our grandmother realised that something wasn't quite right. In her middle 40s, she realised she was expecting an unexpected, very unexpected, bundle of joy, our mother. When she was born, 10 years after her sister and 8 years after her brother, she was the apple of her father's eye. Hence, that's where her name came from. Her father was known as Carl Frederick, and that's where Mum's name came from, Carla Frederick.
When she was young, Mum was a natural left-hander. However, in Holland in those days, it wasn't allowed that you were using the left hand, and so she was forced to use her right hand. And even though she hated it throughout the years, it actually made her very ambidextrous, didn't it, Karen? And she actually became very resourceful, using both her right and her left hands. As Mum grew up, she discovered that she had a real love for sports, and she was a gifted and natural all-rounder. She excelled in swimming, in gymnastics, in water polo, with her love being gymnastics. And Mum excelled at school and became fluent in 4 languages: English, French, German, and of course her natural native language of Dutch. I'm going to add this while I'm thinking about it. I don't know if any of you have ever shaken Mum's hand, but even in hospital, right up to her last days, she lost all her strength, couldn't stand, she really struggled. But if you ever held her hand, Dot knows all about this, if you ever held her hand, she could crush it, honestly. In her earlier days, oh my goodness, her hands were so strong with that Karen, incredible. And I don't think she lost the strength in her hands, she never did.
Approximately 8 years later, World War II started, and a lot of the time all the children had to stay at home because they couldn't go to school. Once the war had ended, they had longer days at school, as well as Saturdays to catch up. Mum was aged around about 8 at this time, and as a young child, she was extremely frightened during the air raids. All the homes would have to blank out their windows so that the planes flying overhead wouldn't be able to see any lights. One winter's night, Mum was extremely frightened during an air raid and was huddled underneath her blankets. It was extremely cold and they had no heating. But something made her came out of her blanket and looked towards the foot of her bed. And there she saw Jesus standing at the foot of her bed, holding his hands out to her. She's never ever forgotten that, and she's told us about this often. And from that time, she knew that he was there to look after her. That was a huge comfort for her during the rest of the war. Mum has told us many stories of war times that many of us in this day would never experience, thank goodness. And, I can't remember what I was saying, that's gone.
She was very courageous in those days.
She was very courageous. Oh, she liked telling stories when she was in the hospice and the home. She loved telling the nurses all the stories about her war experiences. And some of them were very dangerous. She used to ride on her bike along the canals at night, miles and miles, just to get some food for her family from the black markets. And there were Nazis everywhere, and she had to evade them. It was extremely dangerous, a lot of the things that she did.
And so young.
Yeah, she was only about 12.
Yeah, just amazing.
Mm.
At times she'd have to go on her cycle on these dikes and the fog was, she couldn't see through it, so she'd have to wait for moments where the fog lifted and she would keep on cycling until it settled down again and she'd have to wait again. So sometimes just to go and get a cabbage or a turnip.
And when she was telling these stories to some of the nurses, because she was on quite a bit of morphine, she would drop off to sleep. And the nurse would say, "Wake up, Carla, wake up, I want to hear the rest of the story."
Yeah, the nurses loved her
They
stories,
did.
didn't
They just loved, she kept them really entertained. They all came to love her very much.
Oh, so much, so much. We love those nurses.
Yeah.
You can see why Mum was in love with them and they loved her. It's just so lovely.
They're great.
So when we have to go.
Well, this year.
Okay, so years later, we'll just say it. Years later, Mum met Beryl in Vandenbroek. Mum was going home from a water polo game one day when Dad and a friend were walking behind her. And Dad didn't know Mum at this time, but his friend fancied Mum and asked Dad to get Mum to go on a date with him. Well, so being a good mate, Dad did that, and he asked Mum on behalf of his friend, and Mum, well, we all know how assertive
She wouldn't take any nonsense.
yeah, so if your friend hasn't got the courage to come and ask me, well, no. So yeah, she's quite good, she's quite funny like that, and fortunately for us, they got together, Mum and Dad, through this experience, didn't they, Karen? And so, yeah, Dad must have realised he had this really beautiful babe in front of him. Seen the photo on the front of the cover?
Yeah,
That's what she looked like when they met. So yeah, she was really beautiful, and he probably didn't know can't have his babe going. So he
Asked her out.
yeah.
And the rest is history. Yeah, but things didn't go too smoothly because in those days, Dad was an art student and his style of clothes were quite different. In the 1930s, 40s, people were very proper. And he wore pointy shoes, which were very bohemian, and insisted on wearing his V-neck sweaters back to front. And he also had long hair. And Mum's parents, who were very prim and proper, could not understand this young man. But when they got to know him and they recognised his artistic talent and his creative mind and intellect, they realised what a wonderful person he was and grew to love him very much.
Mum and Dad both experienced and saw a lot of things during the war, kind of backtracked a little bit here, that young people should not experience. At the end of the war, the Netherlands needed a lot of rebuilding, and they decided that they wanted their children to have a better life, and themselves. And this is why they decided to leave Holland and to emigrate to another country. They had the choice of either Australia or New Zealand. Thank goodness, currencies, thank goodness they chose New Zealand. I kind of wouldn't mind in Australia, but
I prefer New Zealand, no spiders and snakes. So in 1952 they embarked on a ship called the Sabaya with a lot of other young, skilled Dutch immigrants. They made several friends on board who remained lifelong friends. When they left the port, they both faced each other and looked into each other's eyes and said, "This is the first day of the rest of our life." And it was. It was a life that they both built together. Dot's nodding her head because Mum's told her that story, hasn't she? When Mum and Dad arrived in New Zealand, they were contracted for 2 years for the government. Dad had to work for the railways and Mum at Kororua Mental Hospital. Mum could speak excellent English and ended up being the interpreter and advocate for all the other Dutch women. Working in a mental hospital was extremely difficult for all the women as they had never experienced working in such circumstances and the language barrier was huge. So Mum, acting as an advocate, managed to get many of the women out of Kororua Mental Hospital into better nursing jobs. Mum and Dad then got married and then 2 years later I was born.
it's interesting because just last year we went to one of Mum's I went to one of Mum's very close friends' funeral, who sadly passed away as well, and it was really interesting. Martha's here. It was really interesting to to hear Tanta Hate's
Yeah.
side of how this was, and I just was really blown away by it. So yeah, it's really enough I can relate to this story about coming over and
Yeah.
nurses being put into Porirua
Yeah.
Mental Institution.